You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
So hello, everybody. Gail Kraft here and the Empowering Process podcast. And with me today is a dear friend, John. And John, say your last name for me.
My last name is Butruccio. Thank you.
Butruccio.
Butruccio, yeah.
Yes, so it's C-O, C-C-I-O.
Yeah.
So my last name used to be Chera, but we say in the U.S., Sarah. And this is why I always ask, because did you Americanize it or,
Yeah. I think last names have a tendency to have many versions.
They have very many
Depending on who you
versions.
talk to, man.
Yeah, and we can certainly talk about that. But John is joining us today. We're going to talk a lot about truth. And therefore, a lot of polarity. If we're going to talk about truth, we're going to talk about non-truth as well. So John, he's an entrepreneur, business consultant, and leadership trainer with more than over 30 years of leadership experience in business and production management. He loves what he does and is committed to a lifetime of personal mastery and wishes to share his wisdom and his knowledge. So you're going to hear a lot about his wisdom and knowledge around the subject of truth. His mission, and I love this, John, mission, I'm mission-oriented as well, is to be of service to humanity. He wishes for world peace. Therefore, he's a peaceful person. What better way to be or do or to teach but to live in love and peace? So welcome, John.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
It's going to be awesome. So you posted something about truth, and I responded with, we need to talk about this.
It's a great subject.
It is a great subject because everybody has their version of truth.
Yes.
Right. This is why, you got the telephone, exercise where we talk the same story. And by the time you're at the end of that telephone chain, what comes out is nothing to do with what the original story is all about. That's what perception is all about. And truth is perception.
Yes.
So when you get down to the organic, what I could say soul level truth, it's a little, it's peaceful for me. It's peaceful. And I'm going to talk a little bit about truth for me, and then we're going to really dig deep and delve in for truth for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You want me to repeat the post?
Oh, that would be awesome.
I printed it out because I thought it would be important.
Do it now. Yes.
So the pill that everyone wants but can't seem to swallow. And it's a truth pill. It's inside in somebody's mouth.
Right.
Just these lips. And I don't know who the author is or who did the artwork, but it's phenomenal. And
It is.
eye-opening.
It
I
is.
posted it because it resonates with me quite a
And
bit.
it resonates with our conversation.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Right. So the truth for me, I am truth. And we talked a little bit about what that means. One of the things I do is a soul realignment for people. And that is do a journey as to who you are as of creation. Right? Before programming, before humanity got to taint you. Who are you? And then the realignment is how do you get back to that? Right?
Yes.
And for me, I discovered mine is truth. So here's the scenario. It means truth. I have no choice but to tell the truth. And I grew up in a family of secrets, secret keepers. Don't tell your father this. Don't tell your sisters this. Right? Don't let anyone know that this is happening. And what? And at a very young age, manifested all of that stress with ulcers. And so what that means is that through my life, I've learned how to suppress stress and how to manage that suppression, right? And suppress the truth. until I finally realized that it was hurting my body and started saying, this is the truth, which harmed me in corporate America.
Interesting.
I couldn't stay anymore because I could see what's going on. And I'll give you an example. I have so many of them, but here is an example of the last job I had. After that, I did contract work, and I was managing a project, huge project around a national organization. And at the end of a project, you do a thing called lessons learned. And what went well, we want to be sure we keep doing that. And what didn't go well. And what can we do to fix that? So it's not just a complaint session. It is, this is broken, and here are some options to unbreak it, right? And before holding the big team meeting and leadership meeting and presenting, I went to the 2 leaders of this project and said, listen, I ran into every problem this company has in this project. And I went through my lessons learned. And their response was, you can't present that. We can't say those things, but we can fix them. No, you can't do that, Gail. We cannot verbalize the brokenness of this company. Holy crap.
Who are you going to present that to?
Upper management.
Upper management, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so some level of management was keeping it from them. Oh, interesting.
Or it's none of our business to fix their brokenness. Because a project, you're across departments, you're not within a department. I'm not sure what the reasoning was. I was just in shock. And it was at that point that I'm like, well, what am I doing in this organization? Day one, I asked that question and stayed. So the point being is, from then on, any contract work that I got, because I am basically a contractor, I'm self-employed, and I will do, leadership training, the same types of stuff that you do, but a little bit differently. And I will do project management on occasion. I don't like doing it, but during an interview, I will get, what is your strength? You'll always know what's going on for me. I will tell you the truth. There'll be no secrets going on in this. You will be absolutely sure. And the response is like, that's great. So what's your weakness? I will always tell you what's going on. You will always know what's going on, right? Because you don't want to know it, right? And that is, you don't want to swallow that pill. So how knowing the truth for me now, it's a place of quiet. It's a place of confidence. There's no blame. There's no pointing the finger. There's no I'm right, you're wrong. It really is an emotional settling for me.
Yes.
Right. So let's talk about the pill that nobody wants to swallow. When were you nipping at that pill, if you will, or didn't even realize that the pill was in your hand and you just needed to take it?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Boy, it's often very emotional to even talk about it because it's so powerful. But to the early part of my life, I realized that something wasn't right. I was never really comfortable in my skin. And it was awful because people would say, just be yourself, Johnny, when I was younger. And I kept thinking, well, what is myself? What is that? I realized that it was eluding me, that I couldn't grasp a hold of what it was. And what I realized in my late 40s, and it was actually at a seminar, a personal development seminar, that opened my eyes. This was the awakening,
Yes.
That all the things that I was not really me. That it was not my truth. that I was a product of my society, my surroundings, the people that I hang around with. And the rude awakening I'm to have this awareness that it doesn't have to be that way. And I started seeing parts of myself that I just could not stand. I was embarrassed for myself. I hated it. And fortunately, I had good coaches that helped me with that, to understand that it doesn't have to be that way, that there is another way.
Right. And it's okay to hate yourself right now.
I had to feel that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was the truth pill right there, hating myself, that there's a truth there. The complainer, the criticizer, the condemner, the swearing, drinking alcohol, which I don't drink anymore, thankfully. Just all this nasty stuff that just didn't feel right to me, but I was in it. So coming out of it was where I started to see my real truth, that my real nature was the opposite of all the things I had been. And the surprising thing, Gail, it was hidden, well hidden in concrete, very hard to get out of, but with success. Despite that part of me that I saw that wasn't serving me, I was very successful. I was making a lot of money and liked by everybody, and all the wonderful things that come with being whoever we are, or whoever we think we are, or I say I.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered something, that when that truth came about, this awful reality of my untruth, my truth started showing up, is new friends started showing up. I lost a lot of them. A lot of friends that I had just disappeared slowly, and some were violently, so to speak.
All of mine are gone from that time. They're gone.
You know what I mean? But the people that I attracted from my new truth are wonderful, and my teachers, as well as my old friends. They are my teachers. I still love them, and I liken it to the plate of life. And I'm in the center, and my inner circle are people I relate to the most. And even the people that I dislike are still on my plate. I still love them, but they just way out here. Right. Because they taught me something,
Right.
So that's the short story of the truth that was the hardest pill to swallow, is the way I was showing up in the world at the time.
When we're, I want to say younger, but really there are plenty of young people who are very aware, but when we're not self-aware.
Right.
The trappings of life is what we think is important. Having a good car, a new car, a new home, the kids going to the best schools, right? And when we realize that those are just trappings.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's getting hot in here.
Yeah.
It's trappings, all right. Yeah.
Right. We need to start questioning our values, our value system. I won't say our values, but our value systems.
Sure.
Right. And I've got so many clients going through my head right now that have come because they're lost. They are not comfortable in their skin. They are successful, but they're not happy, right? And they don't understand, right, what's going on in their life. And their big fear is losing the trappings.
Right.
Well, I don't want to lose the house. I don't want to lose, well, I got these bills that I'm responsible for, right? Well, you're in a career that you hate. What do you mean? Well, how am I going to pay the bills? Well, let's figure that out. Right.
Yes.
So you were in a successful career, you were making money, you had a life, and then what happened?
So things changed radically and fast. You mentioned, this brings up another point too, about the cars and things. I was in a place that everything became anticlimactic. So went out and bought the new truck or new car, and it was like, okay, now what? Went on the trips to the Caribbean and these hunting trips, which was a sign of my success because I had the money to do it. But when I got there, it was like this empty feeling. Okay, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So two things happened there. I realized that there was this anticlimactic going on, and trying to figure out why. But it taught me to be grateful for every moment, the airplane rides, every single moment to be grateful. And when I was in those places, to be grateful for it. But it was still that feeling of anticlimactic. Like I did all that work to get here, and now I'm here. And so that was a pretty profound thought and experience for me, around doing all this. What is the purpose? My mission is my purpose, actually, to be of service to humanity. It wasn't just about going to Punta Cana, lay on the beach. The experience of seeing the way people lived around that facility was profound. My truth started coming to me that it wasn't about going to the Caribbean to lay on a beach,
Right.
That there was humanity suffering out there.
Right. And not necessarily underprivileged.
Right.
Right. The suffering is everywhere.
Right. It is everywhere, yes. It's even here. Obviously, we can see that,
Yeah.
And it is, we were talking earlier about how distorted the truth is, because everything is based on our beliefs and paradigms. I do have a way, though, of staying in my truth, if you want to hear that story.
I'd love to.
So are you familiar with cognitive dissonance?
Yes.
So I discovered that term several years ago and didn't make much sense to me, didn't pay much attention to it. But as I'm going through the layers of what my truth is, I started seeing how cognitive dissonance shows up in our society. Right? And that it is basically a person's belief that is so strong that anything that is said to the contrary will be ignored or denied.
Or not even seen.
Right. And then I think to myself, so if we look at, please forgive me, the Republican or Democrat type thing,
Yeah.
They both are in their cognitive dissonance.
And yet they're the same.
And yet they're the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't identify with either one of them at all, nor do I with religion or anything else. Just I am neutral. And I'm happy with that. And I love to, when I hear people say, "Oh, then you must be an independent, or you must be a Buddhist, or you must be this," right?
Oh, they have to put you in a box.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. People don't know what to do if they can't put you in a box.
And I'm so grateful that I'm in that place that I can just say, no, I'm not any of that. I'm just me. And so I think I meditate twice a day, every morning and every evening. Sometimes it all depends on when I fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
The meditation puts me to sleep. And I ask myself constantly, checking in with my cognitive dissonance. What am I not hearing, or am I denying somebody else's truth? And it just keeps me in my center. It keeps me grounded to constantly be checking in.
And so how does truth play out in your leadership training?
In my training, so I bring it up quite often. Bring up the cognitive dissonance, all the layers I went through of how not to be, how I didn't want to be. I bring that up in training. Is leadership oftentimes is teaching people what not to do, and then their truth starts showing up. And thankfully, I have the experience that I can support them in that shift. Because people get pretty defensive.
Well, it's frightening when your belief system, I think of it as the foundation of your building, starts to crack.
Yeah.
Right.
So as an example, I was in a training, this is probably about 10 years ago, local plumbing company, training 10 of his employees. 2 people walked out of the room, quit on that day. They didn't walk out of the room only, they quit their job that day when I brought up the suggestion that they would no longer be able to swear on the job site. Swear words. Their belief was that you're in the construction industry and we swear, and whether you like it or not. Nothing could be further from the truth, So there's a cognitive dissonance right there. Their belief. And thankfully, he replaced those people, and his business soared when the people who did accept, or at least ponder the possibility that we shouldn't be swearing in people's houses.
Oh, absolutely. What's interesting. So I just worked with a company on it with their leader.
Can you hear me right now? I just lost your audio. Oh, there you are.
Okay, I can hear you. So I just finished working with someone a few months ago in their group on leadership skills. And one of the things we worked on, of course, is languaging, right? How do you deal with those who are the rotten apples, shall we say?
Yeah.
Right? We have a team of amazing people, and it just takes one. And so we talked about how you phrase things and present things, and don't take on the responsibility or accountability when it doesn't belong with you, when it belongs there. Right. And honest to goodness, like you said, within weeks, that rotten apple quit.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rotten apple. Yeah.
Yep. So go ahead.
Yeah. So you're planting a seed in a group of people, and so oftentimes they don't need to be fired. They're just going to leave on their own. They know they don't fit in anymore. Right. I love that part of the method I use, and obviously the method you use, in training how not to be. And if people don't like it, then they just go.
They just go.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting you bring that subject up, because when I start training with companies, one of the first things they say, please don't upset my people. I don't want to lose them, because it's hard to find good help. And
are they good help? Are they good help?
Well, that's it. So I don't answer that. I just nod my head, and I don't want to put any energy into that, because that's their fear. But in the end, they're going to find the right people to come in anyway. They're going to attract better people anyways. Right. And I just let that be their experience.
Right.
Not to put any energy into it,
Absolutely. The key for me when I was in a leadership role was, my team was who I served. Right. Yep. And in that serving, I needed to give them tools. The tools they needed to do their job, the training they needed to do their job, in the environment they needed to be in to do their job. And part of my function is to keep the BS away from them.
Right.
Right. And so from outside the team, I was actually seen as the bitch. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't talk to my staff. They're working. You talk to me, and I will let you know whether or not I can release anybody to help you. I don't care who you are. Yeah. Right.
You're the shield, weren't you?
I was the shield. Yeah. And I would take on every single, when I go through all of the leadership roles that I've had. And in every single one where I have had a team, every single one, at least one, usually more, managers asked if I would take over their problem child. Oh, they didn't want to fire them.
Right.
But they didn't want to deal with them anymore.
And did you?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And their problem child was never a problem for me.
That's right.
Right? Because they knew their boundaries.
Yeah.
Here's your job. I'll support you. You support me. Cool? Cool.
Yeah, right? Guess who the problem child is, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So, we're in bringing this back to what the truth is,
I was just going to say that.
To Yeah. In your story there, those people that said, this is my problem child. That's them not being able to take the truth. That it was they who could not deal with that other person.
Right.
I see that connection there.
Yes, and if somebody, anybody is acting out, they're looking for an answer. Now you might not have that answer, right? But as a leader, you should be asking, how can I help you?
Right.
And it might be personal. It might have nothing to do with business, but it has everything to do with business because they bring that into the job.
Sure.
Right. And so you need to accept the whole of the person, not just the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So your role at that time was a manager, correct?
As a manager, yes.
A manager, yeah. And just curious, at that, I don't know how far back in your career that was, but did you lead with a personal mastery type technique?
No. My first leadership job, I was 28. And I had no college degree. I was a street kid. Remember, I grew up in the streets of Boston. I was a gang kid, so I had lots of street smarts.
Oh, yeah.
And I got called. I was home sick, and I got a call from the president of this company that I worked for. And he's like, I'm going to fire your boss. We're in trouble. This is happening, and this is happening. I know you can pull us out. I'd like to offer you his job.
Wow.
Right. And
nice.
Yes, the nice thing is I could do anything. Right. Yeah. So I'm like, cool. So, I met with our business partners, what's not working, what is working, what is it that you would like? I met with the bank. What are you doing with our finances? I want you to do this and I want you to do that. I met with the control. Blah, 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 blah. This was what, 6 months, 9 months. We had to start spending money because our fiscal year was ending and we were making too much money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good place to be.
Yeah. Yep. So I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
And it was a job where I learned a couple of things about leadership the hard way. Your staff are not your friends. My friends, in fact, one actually came in and said, we can't do lunch anymore because I can't just gossip because you're in a position to do something about it. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, I was heartbroken. Right.
Yeah.
But she was right. So I learned that. And I learned that if you have the freedom to do what feels right, because I did everything by what feels right, you can be incredibly successful.
Yes.
Right. The second you have to justify it, my boss would say, how did you know that would work? I felt like it should. Yeah. Right. And he was a numbers man. This drove him nuts. But again, getting back to truth, I was able to live in the truth, right? Sure. How I felt without having to explain or justify where I was going.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
What I learned is that later on in life, as a leader, I had to explain and justify where I was going in a way that was consumable to leadership.
Yeah. Before or after that job?
After.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got bored. So if something is not broken, I don't want it to work there. I want to fix. Okay. Right. Once it's fixed, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Right. We got a routine going, things are clicking, things are awesome. In fact, when I gave my notice, my boss was like, I don't understand. Everything's going well. I'm like, I know. It's time for me to go.
Is that the anticlimactic?
Yeah. So back to, I could talk forever about the fun and the not so much fun of working, but truth truth, justice, and the American way, whatever that means.
Mm.
We started off talking about how it is based on belief systems and perspective,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then we talked a little bit about those feelings that come up when you start realizing that you have not been living in your truth.
Right.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that, because this is the fear. When I talk with new clients that come to me, what I hear is, it took me a while to reach out to you, Gail, because I knew that you would see me, and I wasn't ready to be seen. Right. And my response is, I saw you before you showed up. I was just waiting for you.
Mm.
Right. Because what happens is when you start to take those walls down,
Yeah.
right, and you talked about vomiting the shame, the guilt, the judgment, right,
Yeah.
right, and all of that crap that you carry with you,
Yeah.
And then it's how did you get to forgiveness? How did you get, because you can't let go of that stuff
Mm.
until you lean in, accept that it's who you were,
Sure.
and then forgive yourself.
Right. Yeah, I think the term I'm going to use here that came up first when I discovered my truth was resentment. My coach had me write down a resentment list.
Oh, that's on my list.
Yeah. And so it's one of my first things I train in all leadership skill and all the leadership training is let's talk about what resentment is, because it cures a lot of things. And but before I could forgive other people, I had to forgive myself.
Right.
So all the stuff I was throwing up and everything, I was like, okay, I need to own this stuff. That was me, no matter where it came from, how it got in me. It's always going to be there. It can never come. You can't unlearn stuff. You have to learn new things, right?
Right. Or how to cope with it.
So I was in this was the big shift for me. And it was the first time I cried that I can remember in life, my whole life of being a little kid. I always suppressed the tears until this day. I was sitting with a person knee to knee. It was this exercise they had about tell us something that you were victimized. How were you victimized in your life? The worst story. And there was this young woman there, and so I'm 49 and she's 29. And so this is hard for me to say sometimes because it just brings up a lot of emotion. But I let her go first. Her story was how she got raped. The short story of that is, had I not, how she took responsibility for that. This is what the exercise was all about. I was victimized, but how do I take responsibility? I'm thinking, I've never met anyone who'd been raped.
Oh, yes, you have. They just haven't told you.
Exactly. Took the words right out of my mouth. But then I started realizing, oh my God. So she told the story of how, had I not been gone to the bar, had I not been home by 10 o'clock, like my mother said, had I not gone to the bar, I wouldn't have got drunk, I wouldn't have hitchhiked home, and I would not have been raped by that man. She forgave that man on that day, crying, the whole room's crying. And I started crying. And because I could feel her letting go of 10 years of holding that in, because she was only 19 when that happened. But for me, I could not utter the words of my victimhood because nothing could come close to what she went through. Nothing could, in my entire life, could ever match or be as important to be in resentment towards or victimized. Mine was because I was disabled as a kid, and even now I'm like grateful I was now. So there was a truth right there, and letting go of resentment of my parents, of my family, whatever stuff I had going on about them ended on that day. My real truth started showing up.
Yes. So one of the emotions that our ego uses to keep us in control, to keep us
Yeah.
having the upper hand, if you will,
Yeah.
is shame.
Yes.
Right. I've been doing a lot of shame searching lately.
Sure.
And when I was in my almost master's, not yet master's class of NLP, we did timeline work. And one of the things that we're supposed to work on is shame.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can't find an emotion, you don't search for it. You don't create it. I couldn't find guilt or shame. I couldn't find it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how buried it was.
Oh,
Right. And believe me, I've done plenty of shameful things in my life. I've done plenty of things I should be guilty about, just like everybody else. I've had a life that I've done stuff. So I've done stuff wrong. Right.
And there's your truth.
Right.
At least that can come out. And there's another layer of truth that we all should experience. I'm going to say that. I experienced.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Please continue. That's wonderful.
Yep. So it really is. So guys, you want to talk about shame, give me a call. Be happy to talk about it. But these emotions. So for me, truth shifts all the time. And it is no longer about your belief versus my belief. Right. It's no longer right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. Right. So talk about, can you, because I know that you're there too. Because I know you and your lovely, with where you guys are in your life, and it's beautiful.
I can relate to every bit of it. And the blame, shaming, guilt, the strongest emotions, and maybe the best ones actually to face.
Right.
Because it will set you free, I believe.
Right.
And blame, shame, and guilt, I experience it a lot myself still, as all the layers that I go through of my life, and the memories and flashbacks like I'm experiencing right now. The truth will set you free.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But the fear of facing it is what the general population, if you will, is afraid of, because their facade has kept them, they think, safe.
You know what helped me tremendously in discovering truth is when I understood that a criticism sent my way is actually just feedback. And welcome.
I challenge you on that.
You will?
Yes. Criticism frequently is not given with the intention of feedback.
That's right.
Criticism frequently is given with the intention of blame or judgment.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
I agree with you.
So it's not feedback, right? It's not yours to own,
right,
or to fix, or whatever.
Right. You give me something to ponder there.
Right.
So I always, when I hear it, I always thank people for the feedback.
Oh, I don't anymore. That's motivational bullshit. Right? We talked about that before this, about how I'm now experiencing motivational BS.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You learn that. That's a program you were given in some motivational training. Okay. And I had that thrown at me when I was going through a bunch of shit. It's Gail, it's just feedback. It doesn't feel like feedback. So, let me feel what I'm feeling, because it does not feel like feedback.
What does it feel like to you?
Well, this particular situation that I'm talking about, it was a definite attack, because the intention, so the company that I worked for, this was the company that fired me. And they were going through cleaning out my department. My boss left before he got fired, right? So there was a definite, because they wanted those resources, they wanted to break it up. And so it didn't matter what I did, there was going to be a problem, right? And I was being lied to by my own vice president, right? Being set up to fail. And at one point I was at a meeting and another leader came up and asked if I would come to his department because he knew what was going on, right? And he wanted to save me. And I looked at him and I said, I am poisoned right now. You don't want to touch me. Let it happen. Thank you so much. But I am so toxic, I'm going to burn you right now. But thank you, right? And it was maybe within a week I was fired. That is when I learned to hate that statement. It's only feedback, but not understanding why. Right. It wasn't until, my own journey of clearing out and facing myself and understanding where emotions, that was not feedback.
Right.
There was no critique.
What do you think it was though? I know you gave us some titles, but is that what it is to you?
What? Criticism?
Well, yeah, if somebody's criticizing you is something that you don't want to hear or don't like.
Oh, at that time it was. It was
what?
It was criticism at that time.
Okay. How you perceive that,
Right. What I look at now, I mean, it was definitely their truth. Right.
Their experience of you, right?
Right. It was definitely their truth. Whether or not I was set up to fail, that's a whole other story because the whole department was being set up to fail.
Right.
I could have stepped out of that situation. Like I said, I was thrown a rope and I'm like, no, I'm going to burn the rope if I touch it. Right.
Yeah.
I knew how bad it was. But I will tell you, I did sue that company. I can't talk about the settlement.
Right.
But I will tell you, my first meeting with my lawyer, he at the time said, Gail, I came here as a lawyer 35 years ago. My first client was someone from that company with this exact situation. If you think suing them is going to change them, you're wasting your time.
Interesting.
Right? And I looked at him and said, no, I just want specific individuals to know they can't get away with it because I don't want someone else to have to face this from them. And, and that was the point. It wasn't money. It wasn't anything other than this was not cool. It was mean and malicious and not necessary. But again, from their truth, because this is how the culture of that organization functioned.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Me being truth, it was very hard for me I would sit at my desk and cry. I just would bawl my eyes out. Why am I here? Right?
In that company, was that a large corporation?
Yes.
And do you see that in many corporations?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Not as
prevalent.
Right. It still is there because I did contract work for companies after that. And I will say, and because I went through that experience, I was sensitive to like, whoa, this is definitely not a company I would want to, hang my hat on. And there were companies that like, wow, this place is progressive. They're awesome. Right. Yes, this stuff is there, but it's manageable, right? It's being managed from the upper level, not the lower level. Right. So there's good, it's a lot of polarity. There's good and there's bad, right?
I have a question to ask you on that subject, if you don't mind. It's all related to truth,
No, it's all truth.
So I was channel surfing the other day. So I'm just really tired of listening to all the talking heads and all that perceived truth, if you will, right? The rhetoric. And it ended up on a woman's radio station. And so I was listening to it. And they were having a discussion about corporations. So I said, okay, this is interesting to me. I thought I wanted to be working in corporations with my business, but I discovered that I don't want to. And that's another story. But this woman made a comment about how they were bashing men, first of all. So that piqued my interest even more to see what their view was.
What their
And
truth
maybe
is.
some truth to it. I don't know, but you were in it. They were talking about big corporations and how the male energy is what created what you're talking about. Basically, I'm just like checking off the boxes of all the things that were happening. They were repeating the same thing, saying the same thing, and blaming it on male energy.
So I will tell you, I have worked in a matriarchal organization.
Okay.
I worked in a company for a while that 85% of senior leadership were women.
Okay.
After working at John Hancock, which was male.
Right.
I was on the board of directors there, so you know that I had that jock strap tied pretty tightly around my waist, right?
Yeah, I get good visual there. So
right. I definitely had, right?
Yes.
I was ready to fight with the best of them.
Yes.
And so here I am now in a matriarchal organization, and I'm like a fish out of water, man. I have no idea what's going on or why. But here's what happened that would never have happened in a male-dominated organization.
Mm-hmm.
I was running a project there were two project managers that it was that big, right? Yep. And so I was doing, internal processes and systems. She was doing external. We clashed heads like no tomorrow. And so I wanted to solve the problem. And so I asked if her and I could have a discussion after our team meeting, the project team meeting. She's like, sure. So I went to her office. As she was walking to her office, this is how evident it was that we were not getting along. Her boss went, Gail's in your office. Right. She's like, I know.
Oh, interesting.
Right. She came in and closed the door.
Heads up, huh?
Right. She came in and closed the door. And my conversation with her was this. You're climbing the corporate ladder and you're stepping all over me to get there. Honey, I've been there and I have no interest in climbing that ladder again. I don't like it up there. I want to be exactly where I am, but I can help you get there if you stop stepping on me and listen to what I have to say.
This is you saying that to her?
Yep.
So she was intimidated then?
Whatever, doesn't, no labels.
Oh, okay.
And she went, am I? And I said, yes, let me show you the evidence. And so I gave her examples. She goes, my goodness, I think you're right. We cried, we hugged, we planned our strategy, and we were an amazing team after that. I would never have had that conversation with a male.
Interesting.
Right?
Yes.
Right? We were able to be honest about who we were. That's and right. What our expectations are and how we could support each other.
So there's probably some truth to that then, right. What they were saying.
Right.
I
some truth.
Pardon me?
Some truth, because we also had the book club.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I sense from their conversation that it wasn't bashing men, that it was a truth. Right. They were just sharing their experience, and I didn't take any offense to it whatsoever. Because I can, I feel the difference, male and female, in those a lot larger corporations I work with. There's total different energy there, total.
Absolutely.
And maybe rightfully so, and some businesses, the way they're run, that they need that energy on one or the other. I don't know. I like to think that the world doesn't need to have that just male energy out there, which we see that's very prevalent,
So the first book I wrote It's called Authentic Women Have It All. And that book was about women who put on the jockstrap and go climb the ladder with male energy. And how by doing that, you're depriving corporate of balance.
Yes.
Right? Because the
Yes.
women bring perspective. The women, they plant, they nurture, they grow. The men hunt, kill, and feed. It's a fact.
Big difference.
But together,
Yeah.
you build community.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Have
It's
some
not
harmony there.
right.
Yeah.
You working together. Right? And so, where is corporate America going now? My book, I wrote that in 2013, basically predicted that business is going to implode. And they're imploding.
They are. Yeah, it's pretty obvious, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of running scared, to say the least.
Yeah. And
Interesting.
rather than embracing change, women will embrace change more so than men.
Yes.
And this is generalities. There are plenty of women who won't embrace change and plenty of men who, right? So this just don't, you don't have to contact us on this stuff. This is in general, right? Because they're all about nurturing and raising the kids, and the kids change constantly, right? And so they're about adjusting and sitting back and questioning, is it time to bring that, boundary down, or do I keep the boundary up, or whatever? They're more adept at managing a team. Then that's why I was successful. I let my womanhood out. Go ahead.
No, what you're saying reminds me of when I came out of what I'll call coaching school. Personal mastery wasn't really a coaching school, but it was certainly the foundation to build a coaching business out of. When I came out of that in 2007, as a student, and I worked for them for a couple of years, I started doing personal empowerment workshops. And when I came out of it, I said, men really need this. We are out of balance. I knew I was, so I figured, and I knew that most men were. So I might get shot for saying that, but maybe not. So I put together 3 personal empowerment workshops for men. Nobody showed up. The first one, I went to another area, invited more people, and nobody showed up. And the third time, no one showed up. I said, okay, all right, there's a lot of resistance here. So I called it the Empowered Woman Workshop Series. Filled the rooms for years. Some of them went 18 months long, years long, every week, except for holidays.
Right.
10, 15, 20 women in a room. And after about, so that in of itself told me something right there about our society.
Right.
And the resistance out there for men to go take a look at themselves, so to speak, And then finally, after 4 or 5 years of that, some of the women I've been working with for a long time asked me, why don't we invite men? So I said, go ahead. I wasn't going to ask them.
Bring someone in.
But then it wasn't 50-50, but maybe 20% of the room was men. And that helped balance it a little bit. And that just told me what our society was like. Ironically, serendipitously, perhaps. Now, most of my clients are men.
Right.
So I don't know what shifted, maybe me, or maybe the men are shifting.
Oh, I think the men are shifting. I think the corporations that will survive, that won't implode, will be the corporations that have men who are in touch with their feminine side.
Right.
Right. And aren't afraid, of allowing the feminine in.
Right.
And women who are in touch with their masculine side.
Right.
Right. And not afraid of letting the masculinity in. That's
Right.
not being masculine. It's being in
Right.
touch with that. That's a part of who you are.
That's right.
right?
It is there.
Yep, yep. And there's no shame and then there's no guilt. And there's a
Right.
time when you have to be that way. So for example, two lines I will give to you, which are bringing out the masculine side as a leader. One is as a mother, right?
Mhm.
And when my children were not doing what I had asked them to do, my voice would get lower. And I would say, maybe you didn't understand what I said. Right.
They were listening, right?
Right. So I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt of not
Yeah,
comprehending.
yeah.
Right.
There's an opportunity for right here for
Right,
me.
right. And
Love that.
all of a sudden it would happen. Right. Right.
Very good.
Right. And then my first leadership job is some procedure that I put in place in a meeting with the team. And someone mentioned we didn't vote on that. Now, we discussed options. I always brought the team in to talk about what was going on and, got their feedback. And I looked at this person and I went, I am so sorry. I don't know what I said that might have confused you and gave you the impression that this was a democracy. It's not. It really stops with me. I'm the one who makes the decision, and I didn't ask for a vote.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Now that is a masculine energy thing to do.
Yeah. So
Right.
somewhat being assertive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But not in a mean way. It's basically saying that, this is, I ask for your feedback, but the bottom line is I have to go to the president and justify. Right. And if it doesn't work, it's my butt that's on the line.
That's right.
Right. So, yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
We're talking about that balance there, and an observation for me it was very challenging for me to accept the feminine side. I know it's there, and so in working with people, I started seeing what I'll call the mask. So within the home, I think that is probably very easy for the men and women to be in touch with the masculine and feminine. And I see that in when people are their guards down. The minute they walk outside that door, the mask. I've got to be the dominant male or the dominant female, whatever shows up. And when I realized that mask came off, it was two things that happened around that time. I became more aware of myself, of what this mask looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I always walked fast, point A to point B, especially outside of the home, going to the store, doing my thing, coming out. And I realized when that mask came off, something else went away, was the urgency of going from point A to point B. It's more of a saunter now and not a fast walk.
Right. You're not mission oriented. Goal oriented is not the same as mission oriented.
Right. And I don't know if both things happen at the same time for a reason or not, but those two things happen at the same time. To remember it vividly.
My posture changes, my face changes. I physically change as I go through my metamorphosis in life. And I can almost see it week to week.
Sure.
Oh my goodness, that's really kind of crazy. These masks, we all have archetypes. I do a series called The Dark Side, and we talk about the archetypes within us. I also have the Journey of the Goddess coming up, which we talk about the feminine faces that we all women have, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they serve a purpose, right?
Yes.
Because we are, different characteristics have to come out during certain, the mother, when I'm with the kids, the mother is the mother, right?
Right.
The wife, is not going to be the same as the mother, and the sultry wife is not going to be the same as the one cooking dinner, right?
That's right.
Maybe, I don't know, it depends.
Yeah.
Right. But these are archetypes that are within us that we are able to call up consciously, right? What you're talking about is that an archetype or persona that takes you over.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you become aware of the different personalities that we are, and you can say, okay, so I'm going to go to such and such a meeting. Friend Gail is going to stay home, and business Gail is going to show up. Right.
Right.
And so
Right.
business Gail will be friendly, but
Right.
that doesn't mean that I'm forming a friendship.
That's right.
Right. Same
Yes.
thing when I coach, I will be very friendly.
Yes.
But don't think I'm extending friendship.
That's right.
To you, because I probably don't like a lot of what you're saying or doing.
Yeah.
You're my client. I'm going to support your journey, not mine.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's a very, very good point as a coach, to have that, the boundary. Maybe not necessarily a hard line, but certainly the boundary that can fluctuate a little bit. But I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
The empath in me just wants to help everybody and be friendly, but they weren't fitting in my inner circle. Some did, but most of them don't. So
no.
Put them out here somewhere.
No, and keep your distance. Right. Keep your distance. Yeah, truth. I don't know what everybody else's truth is. Anyone who's listening to us, your truth, if you're feeling comfortable, if you're not looking and wondering, what's going on, if you're not uncomfortable in your skin, like John was talking about, then you're living your truth, whatever that looks like. But if you're feeling a little bit lost, a little bit unclear, and a little bit like, well, what's the purpose of all this BS? Right? If you're feeling that, then there's a level of truth missing in your life. And you're suppressing, maybe like I was suppressing the I don't have any shame or guilt. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't find it. Right, man. Oh man! As soon as I picked up that leaf, there it is.
Yeah. I think truth can be, if you look at it as a big umbrella, there's a lot of things that can fit under it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it the other day, because it shows up all the time for me, and that little quote there, just like that day, was a reminder to be in my truth. But under that umbrella, there's one that is relative, I believe, is trust. To what that means and how my truth came out. I want to use the word violently, because I was put in my place. This awareness around. Someone asked me, "Where are you at with trust?" And I said, "Well, I trust everybody." So
there's a lie.
Well, it was a lie, but I thought I was trusting everybody, and so much so that I got taken advantage of. So from that standpoint, it was not serving me.
Right.
And this woman started crying when I said that to her, because it was definitely not my truth. I think I wanted to be liked, maybe. It was really the truth.
That's right.
Just trust anyone. Whatever you say, okay, I'll go with that. Maybe I was being a follower. I don't know. But so my truth started showing up. My truth showed up there that day. She said, "John, I can't explain it now, but when I get home, I'll email you what I mean by why you should not trust everybody." And she did. A week later, this nice, wonderful email is, "John, I trust an airline pilot to fly me from Boston to LA and back. But I will not trust that airline pilot with my grandchildren alone." And that was like this solid brick on my forehead. And didn't I not trust somebody later who embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars from me right after that? But it took that lesson baseball bat in the side of the head of drawing this line and having boundaries around what trust is.
I just wrote down as you were talking, discernment is what you need.
Pardon me?
Discernment.
What is it?
Discernment.
Oh, discernment. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
As I discovered painfully later on, but
And we all have had that. I mean, I've got a similar story. Went into business with someone that I trusted. That I thought she had a successful business for over 35 years, knew how to run a business, and we went in together, and come to find out it was her son and her husband that was running the business, not her.
oh, really?
Yeah. And, lost every penny that I put into it. I ended up closing the business and taking the note that we had done up for the money that I'd put in and said, yeah, don't bother paying me back. I know you're not going to be able to.
Oh,
I don't want that stress in my life. So, I look at it as a very expensive lesson, and I release you from it.
Yeah.
I felt so good letting that money go.
Well, yeah. So there's
Expensive.
attachment kind of disappearing there, because when we expect somebody to pay us back, there's an attachment to that, right?
Right.
So I'm writing a little mini article for Carlos Perez.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So he asked me to. I answered one of his questions that he posts every day about things that don't serve us and situations or whatever. And attachments is an energy to me. It's physical. It feels physical, emotional energy. Yeah. So if we, I don't remember who said this, but it was some person in my life said, if you're going to loan someone money, just don't expect that you're going to get it back. Just loan it. End result.
Typically, that's what I do. This was the first time that, we went to a lawyer and we drew up a contract and the whole, because I was being advised to cover yourself.
Sure.
Well, what good did that do? I still didn't get the money.
Yeah.
I would have been better off to have done it the way that I typically do, is give her the money. If she pays me back, cool. If she doesn't, cool. Because any money, own money coming back to me.
Yeah.
It was not her paying me back. It was her returning the money that she hadn't spent. Right.
Right.
So, and so it's discernment.
So if we relate that experience to our truth, right?
Right.
How does that show up in your truth? What is the pill that everyone wants but can't seem to swallow? And did you think that you were going to get paid back? Or?
Absolutely.
You did. Okay.
Absolutely.
That was your truth.
Right. Right. Truth and trust. Right.
Truth and trust.
Truth and trust. Right. When I became aware that was not going to happen.
Yeah.
It took me a while to manage my expectations.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And my attachment to the money.
Right.
And figure out.
Right.
Right. When I finally faced what's important to me, her friendship. And that's what I said to her. I said, your friendship is more important to me than the dollar.
Sure.
I said, would I like the money back? Of course, but let it go.
Yeah. And maybe deep down inside, you might have known that you might not be getting it back. The process of putting it in writing and everything that.
That there was a part of me that was saying,
Yeah. So, what's interesting, we have a lot in common, which I think that's great for conversation. Like I had mentioned earlier, that person I trusted and embezzled all that money from me, right? By that time, I had already been well into being a coach and understood this whole thing about forgiveness.
Right.
As I knew I had to forgive that man.
Right.
And I did right away.
Right. I have no animosity
Yeah.
towards her. Will I ever go into business with her again? Hell no.
So I went as far as convincing myself that, you know what, I'd probably even go and have lunch with this guy. He'd pay for it, but because before that happened, I knew him for 5 years, did business with him, and had this really great relationship with him. He's a good guy, I learned a lot from him. But he was a con, and so I learned, that was a good lesson that I learned in my life that time, that this is my lesson I've learned, to not hang on to that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
The new trust.
It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve you at all.
Nope. And that is the truth now. I have proved it beyond any reasonable doubt, Well,
So John,
anything that my previous life taught me,
John, we could go on for hours. I think
I know
we
it, yeah.
have gone on for hours.
Yeah.
I would like you to remind people how they could get in touch with you if they want a little bit more information.
Yeah.
So
the best way is my phone. And because it's the easiest way, it is 603-244-2318. And I say that because my new website isn't quite up yet. It's still
and what will the name of the website be when it is up?
It is successparadigminc.com. And it's in the final stages. Any day now it'll be complete. You can still get on it. It's just not as pretty as I'd like to see it, but
it's never
but anyways,
perfect.
that's a way, and I would appreciate anybody to have this conversation.
Awesome.
And
Yes.
share it. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
This has been fantastic. And again, everybody, if there's something that came up for you, or if you know someone who maybe they could learn from this, please like it, share it, comment on it. We'd love to hear from you. And if it stirred something up, if you write it in the comments, I'll probably do another podcast on it. Thank you, everybody. Gail Kraft, the Empowering Process Podcast. John, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process Podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailkraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.